Before my birth mother passed away, she entrusted me to her sister, who was the second wife of a court official in the capital, to raise me as her own. When my aunt received me, she held me tight, her eyes brimming with tears.
My poor child, why such a tragic fate?
She then pulled out a handkerchief to wipe my tears.
From now on, this is your home. I'll be your real mother.
Outside the door, a young boy, who had just excitedly entered with a porcelain cup, froze. The teacup in his hand slipped and shattered on the floor. He gritted his teeth.
Mother, that is exactly what you told me back then.
My aunt, still caught up in her sadness, looked awkward. She quickly forced a smile and explained.
Sooner, how about this pretty little sister becomes your wife someday?
The boy turned and ran off.
She is too ugly. I don't want her.
14 years flew by. On my wedding day, he blocked my bridal sedan chair. His eyes were bloodshot.
You promised you'd be my wife. How can you go back on your word? You're breaking your promise.
Cui Xun never liked me. Not really. It was because when I first arrived, I was covered in dust and grime. I was crying in my aunt's arms, my tears mixing with the dirt on my face. My little face was as dirty as a stray kitten's. My aunt took out a handkerchief and wiped my face. After wiping me, she wiped her own. She gently wiped the smudges from my face, then hugged me, comforting me.
Don't cry anymore. Everything will be fine now that you're home. With me here. This will be your home from now on. I'll be your real mother.
Back then, I didn't understand. She had only been married to Cui Min, the court official from the Ministry of Justice, for 3 years. And her relationship with Cui Xun, the eldest son from Cui Min's previous marriage, had only just started to improve. Cui Xun hadn't accepted her at first. She had to rein in her own personality and coax him gently with soft words. She poured her heart into it, devoting herself completely. When he was sick and cried out for his mother in a nightmare, she held him, patting his back and promising,
Sooner, get well soon. Even though you're not my own flesh and blood, I swear to the Bodhisattva, I will never treat you poorly. Just think of me as your real mother.
Cui Xun was cared for by her with such devotion for several days. Only after he recovered did his attitude finally change. He started calling her mother. He would also bring her his newly written calligraphy practice, or show her the crickets he'd just caught. That day, he had just received a special cup of tea. He was eagerly bringing it to my loving aunt. But he happened to overhear my aunt's last comforting words to me. With youthful impulsiveness, he became furiously jealous on the spot. He smashed the teacup. Later, even though my aunt explained things to him, he was stubborn. He held a grudge and refused to listen. And towards me, who had taken half of his affection, he naturally showed no kindness. I was always obedient, and because I was living under someone else's roof, afraid of making my aunt feel awkward, I became even more humble in trying to please him. I'd follow him around, calling him brother. When he studied, I fanned him. When he caught crickets, I wove cages for him, but he would impatiently shoo me away.
Stay away. Your aunt took my mother's place, and now you want to take mine.
Then he'd mock me.
You look like a skinny bean sprout, and you actually think you can be my wife. Dream on.
My eyes welled up with tears, but I gritted my teeth, pretending not to hear. My uncle came home from work and happened to see it. He took my hand and led me to the alley entrance to buy me many candied hawthorns and preserved plums. After he tucked me in for the night, I heard him angrily confronting my aunt.
You've spoiled him rotten. He'll be 9 next year. Still, so clueless. He lost his own mother, too. But he can't put himself in someone else's shoes, can't be considerate of his sister. Instead, he is acting like a baby, fighting for attention.
Auntie tried to smooth things over, playing to his mood.
All right, dear. Doesn't this just prove that Shun sees me as his real mother? That is why he is jealous of Ning. Good thing our Ning has such a sweet nature. She doesn't hold anything against her brother. She chuckled and added, the kids just met. It is totally normal for them to clash a bit. They'll grow fond of each other the more time they spend together. Who knows, they might even become inseparable later on.
The day Auntie hoped for never quite came. Instead, the rift between us only deepened. My birthday, you see, was only 2 days after Cui Xun's. Uncle and Auntie discussed it.
Ning just joined our family, and she is turning 6. That is a milestone birthday. Let's host a banquet, Uncle suggested, and invite the prominent families from the capital. It'll be like officially adopting her. If the 2 kids end up together later on, that would be wonderful. But if not, we still need to let everyone know that the Cui family has an adopted daughter, and that she is from a respectable family. That way, no one will dare look down on her.
Auntie was deeply touched. Her eyes welled up. She wrapped her arms around his waist and softly replied,
My dear.
Uncle patted her back, and with a smile he said,
There. She is your sister's child, so she is my child too. It is the least I can do. Since you joined our family, you've always put so much effort into Shun's birthday. This year, Let's just celebrate them together.
That was the plan, but on the day of the banquet, Cui Xun was nowhere to be found. The banquet ended abruptly. The whole estate was in a frantic search for him. It wasn't until late that night that the servants found Cui Xun at his birth mother's grave. He was slumped against his mother's tombstone, fast asleep, drooling all over the ground. Uncle was both frantic and furious. For the first time ever, he gave him a good few whacks with a board. No one could talk him down. Auntie stepped forward to intervene, but he pushed her aside.
This is all your fault for spoiling him. It is just a birthday. He has one every single year. This is the first time he is sharing it with his sister, and he decides to throw a fit. He is a boy, but his heart is smaller than a pinprick. How can I ever expect you to achieve anything great in life? How will you ever uphold our family name? You have the gall to cry at your mother's grave. But where have your stepmother and I ever mistreated you? You miss your mother. Doesn't your sister miss hers too? She is 3 years younger than you, mind you.
Late that night, Cui Xun lay on his bed, quietly sobbing. His wet nurse stood by him, gently trying to comfort him.
Young master, you were never this petty before. How is it that now that you're older, your temper has gotten so stubborn? The master didn't really mean to hit you. He was just terribly worried when you ran off like that. The master was so frantic he was practically spitting fire.
Cui Xun, his voice muffled by tears, interrupted.
Why would he be worried? He wasn't worried at all. Now, he has a new wife and a sister who loves to play innocent. He probably wishes he could just beat me to death.
The wet nurse patted his back, gently trying to soothe him.
The master just feels for young Miss Ning. Her father died in battle before she was even born. Her own mother also passed away from illness. None of her relatives could be counted on. Otherwise, she wouldn't have traveled all this way to our family.
I pushed the door open and stepped inside. I followed Cui Xun's lead, calling out to the nursemaid too. She immediately stood up.
Look, young master, Miss Ning's here to see you. Come on now, no more tears.
Cui Xun saw me enter. He immediately stopped crying. He quickly turned his face away. I crouched by the head of the bed. He was tucked under the covers. I couldn't see his wounds, and I didn't dare lift the blanket to check, afraid of making him angrier. So I just asked softly,
Brother, are you still hurting?
He just let out a heavy snort, still not looking back at me. I pulled a small bottle of wound medicine from my sleeve and tucked it into the nursemaid's hand. I instructed her.
This medicine was from my father's time in the army. My mother kept it safe all these years. It is excellent for external wounds.
The nursemaid thanked me profusely and patted my cheek.
Miss Ning, you're so thoughtful. So considerate at such a young age. You should head back to your room and rest. Don't worry too much. The young master will be fine by tomorrow.
Uncle did love his son after all, and the household staff knew their place, so they hadn't been too harsh. Cui Xun's injuries healed within half a month, but our relationship remained as cold as ever. Aunt asked me to attend school with him. As she packed my school bag,
Ning, your uncle can certainly afford to hire the best tutors to teach you your lessons right here at home. You've just arrived back in the capital. You don't have any friends yet, spending all your days with just maids and servants. That is not good for broadening your horizons. Secondly, your mother entrusted you to me. I must act as a mother and plan for your future. Friendships made in youth are the most precious. At the academy, you'll have many classmates. That will be good for your future prospects, even marriage. And thirdly,
she stroked my head and said with a smile,
your brother Xun has quite a stubborn streak. Auntie worries he'll get into trouble out there. With you, Ning, looking out for him, I'll feel much better.
I readily agreed. Puffing out my chest, I promised to watch over my brother well. At the time, I didn't quite grasp it. Aunt, having me go to school with Cui Xun, was likely more about fostering a bond between us, so I'd have someone to lean on later in life. My family connections in this life as Zhou Ning were always fragile, yet every elder I'd met treated me as their own. Aunt and uncle, even the nannies and maids in the manor, it was the same. Only Cui Xun was different. On our first day of school, his classmates gathered around, curious about me. He frowned.
Just a country cousin from out of town. Nothing special to talk about.
A dark, thin young master with a cheeky grin. He smirked.
Your cousin doesn't need to be civitowed concerned about you, does she? Even carrying your school bag. Cui Xun, I heard. This is your future little wife.
The whole class roared with laughter. Cui Xun's face instantly flushed crimson. He lunged forward and shoved the boy to the ground.
What the hell are you babbling about? If you want a wife so badly, you can have her. Take her. I don't want her.
Wang Yun picked himself up off the ground, dusting off his clothes. He didn't seem mad at all. He just glanced my way and replied,
If you don't want her, I'll take her. Just don't try to take her back later.
He pulled a packet of snacks from his robe and offered them to me.
Cousin, what is your name? Want some jerky?
Even though he seemed like a mischievous kid, he didn't really have a temper and was pretty easygoing. Auntie taught me to make more friends, and I didn't want to make things awkward, so I took the dried meat and gave him a sweet smile.
Thanks, Brother Wang Yun.
He scratched the back of his head, looking a little embarrassed, but Cui Xun, standing nearby, snatched my satchel away and grumbled angrily.
Playing nice, aren't we? Calling everyone brother, you meet.
I stayed in the capital for 8 years and became very close with Wang Yun and my other classmates. It wasn't until I was 14 that my uncle was convicted and exiled. Overnight, the Cui family's servants scattered. Luckily, Nanny Zhang and the other maids all received severance pay and returned to their hometowns to retire. Cui Xun, being at the Imperial Academy, was the headmaster's favorite student and was adopted as his foster son. With the headmaster's guarantee, he was spared the harsh sentence of exile. As an adopted daughter, I wasn't implicated either. In prison, my uncle asked me, "Do you have any families in mind for marriage? If they are of good character, perhaps they wouldn't mind the Cui family's misfortune." He sighed and continued,
I should have arranged your marriage sooner, but your aunt couldn't bear to let you go, wanting to keep you around for a few more years. Now, it seems I've held you back.
I was a grown woman by then. How could I not see Auntie's intentions for keeping me? It was just that Cui Xun never gave his approval. He had grown into a remarkably dashing young man with an extraordinary presence. His face especially took after his birth mother and was exceptionally handsome. When dealing with others, he was cool and distant, yet always impeccably polite. There were countless young ladies from prominent families in the capital secretly inquiring about him. Auntie would try to sound him out, but he never gave an inch. He'd simply say he hadn't achieved his academic goals yet, and it wasn't the right time for marriage. Auntie, always thinking ahead, would deliberately mention that Zhou Ning was getting older and a girl couldn't afford to wait. He still wouldn't respond. But whenever someone came to the Cui family to propose marriage, he'd find fault with everything, even resorting to sarcasm.
The Cui family has raised her for so many years. They don't mind a few more. She is not just anyone for someone to take away.
Auntie looked much gaunter in prison, but her spirits were still good. She took my hand in disgust.
That Wang Yun fellow, he has visited our house many times. I can tell he genuinely cares for you. If he doesn't mind our current situation, perhaps we could arrange your marriage to him. You could stay in the capital and avoid suffering with us in the south.
I shook my head. Father, mother, I want to go with you. Over the years, I had started calling them that, and without even realizing it, my address for them had changed. It felt so natural, as if that is what I was always meant to call them.
No,
My uncle, rarely so stern, frowned.
my crime is serious this time, and it is unlikely I'll ever return to the capital. Should I let you settle in a desolate place and ruin your entire life?
I too abandoned my usual obedience and replied with a straight face, "Your daughter has decided to stay by your side, father and mother. I won't marry in this lifetime." On the day we left, Cui Xun never appeared to see us off. My uncle, both weeping and laughing, exclaimed,
Well, isn't that something? Lost a son, but gained a daughter.
As we were about to leave the city, Wang Yun arrived in a rush, and my best friend, Pei Suyun, the daughter of the Minister of Rights. Suyun, my best friend, held my hand, crying and talking for ages. She was nagging like an old woman. As soon as the guards urged us on, she'd slip them some silver. She handed me a letter and a small pouch of silver. Then, lowering her voice, with a pout, she said, "The silver's from me. The letter's from him. I didn't even want to pass it on for him. Didn't want to hold you back." She then sighed and added, "But now that you're heading south, it is pretty much like becoming a nun anyway, so I guess it doesn't matter if you're held up." Wang Yun didn't say much. He just handed me a heavy bundle.
It is all your favorite snacks. You probably won't find these down south. Once you're settled, send word through someone, and I'll send you more.
He then added,
It is not just for you. I remember your aunt enjoys these dried meats and pastries too.
Finally, he stammered for a moment.
My father said he is fine with whatever I decide.
I quickly cut him off. "I'm leaving now."
Take care.
He shouted after me.
There are some silver notes in the bundle. Let me know when you run out.
The guards had all been taken care of, so the journey was relatively smooth. After all, their families still lived in the capital. We traveled for over 3 months, wearing out several pairs of shoe soles. Finally, we arrived in Lingnan. After completing the transfer procedures, the environment was actually better than we expected. Aside from the stifling heat, everything else was manageable. A rare smile appeared on my uncle's gaunt, tanned face. He said to my aunt,
This place, it looks like there are flowers all year round. Once we rent a home, I'll plant some for you.
Since we had some money, we quickly got settled. We rented a quiet house with 3 rooms. My parents took the south-facing one, and I stayed in the north room. That evening, as I lit the oil lamp, I suddenly remembered the letter. I tore it open and read it. Sure enough, the letter contained only 2 short lines.
You should have married sooner. Why come suffer in Lingnan? I would never marry you.
He really doesn't know what is good for him. At this point, Who cares about something as trivial as marriage? My uncle was getting old and had developed asthma on the road. My aunt was already frail, and the journey had taken a toll. She was as thin as paper, looking like she could be blown over by a gust of wind. Plus, we'd surely get sick from not being used to the local climate. We were in a strange new place and didn't even know where to find a reliable doctor. If anyone got sick, it would probably be a huge problem. It wasn't like being in the capital anymore, where servants took care of everything. I needed to get familiar with the surroundings beforehand, so we wouldn't be running around like headless chickens when an emergency hit. Also, the grain store, the fabric shop, the market, and the docks. I needed to know where everything was. Our new rented house was quiet, but I wasn't sure about the public safety. I needed to ask around about that too. Besides, all of the Cui family's assets had been confiscated. Now I only had the 2 silver notes Wang Yun had given me. After renting the house, there wasn't much left. The livelihood of our family of 3 would require careful long-term planning. I left early and returned late, spending a full 2 weeks exploring the city, looking for ways to earn money, washing clothes for others, doing odd jobs. The pay was so little, and even if I was willing to do it, people would look at my appearance and probably wouldn't even hire me. I couldn't cook, and my needlework was always just so-so. Then one day, I wandered into a bookstore called Wenhan Hall in the south of the city, and something clicked. I had an idea. From then on, I started by copying books for the store. Then, after reading too many romantic plays and stories, I started forming my own ideas. I started writing my own stories. To my surprise, they became quite popular with readers. They said my stories were gentle and heartwarming, full of life. Some people even came all the way from the provincial capital just to buy my work. By my 3rd year in Lingnan, I was already able to support my family with my writing. I'd even saved a little money. Just as our lives were starting to look up, my uncle suddenly developed rheumatic pain. It wasn't really sudden though. He'd been able to bear it before. But lately, the flare-ups were getting more frequent. Lingnan is a humid region with continuous rain and clouds year-round. My uncle had suffered in prison and developed this lasting ailment not long after we arrived. I wrote a letter back to the capital, asking Zhou Ning to help me find a good doctor and get some special medicinal plasters. When the plasters arrived, an unexpected person showed up too. That day, a typhoon was raging. The gale force winds uprooted the big tree at the alley entrance. The courtyard was flooded, with water up to our calves. That afternoon, Uncle's asthma suddenly flared up. His face was turning a purplish red, and his lips were turning blue. In this kind of weather, I doubted any doctor would dare step outside. Even Aunt, who was usually so calm, was at a loss. I threw on an oilcloth, borrowed a bamboo hat, and rushed out into the torrential rain, stumbling and splashing through the water. What usually took just a short walk felt impossibly far that day. It felt as long as the road I took to Aunt's house after my mother died years ago. My heart was filled with dread. Thankfully, when I knocked on Dr. Shu's door, he took one look at me and knew the situation was critical. Without a word, he put on his raincoat, grabbed his medicine box, and set off with me. The wind was truly ferocious. We were like dry leaves, ready to be swept away by the gale at any moment. Old Man Shu's medicine box was swinging wildly. He had to hold it down with one hand. As we reached the alley entrance, a powerful gust of wind hit us. It snapped a thick branch off the old banyan tree. The moment the branch fell, Old Man Shu grabbed my arm and pulled me back with all his might. It crashed just a foot from my feet.
Don't be so reckless.
His voice was drowned out by the wind and rain, so I didn't hear it clearly. I just saw the alley was completely blocked by the broken branch, leaving only a narrow gap. I could barely squeeze through sideways. Just then, we heard a horse neigh from the other side of the alley. In this god-awful weather, who would be riding a horse? The splashing of hooves grew closer, then stopped abruptly right at the alley entrance. A figure jumped off the horse, wearing a straw cape. He was powerfully built. He suddenly ripped off his bamboo hat, revealing an anxious face.
Zhou Ning.
It was Wang Yun. In the past 2 years, he'd put aside his carefree ways, studied diligently, and finally passed the imperial examinations. Then, through his father's connections, he secured a minor official post in a nearby county.
Suyin told me about sending the medicine, and who else was better suited to bring it?
His eyes were red with anger again.
In this weather, are you really trying to get yourself killed? You're a pampered young lady, for goodness sake. Why not just hire more servants? The silver notes I gave you, you sent them all back. You just want to make yourself suffer. My family has plenty of money.
I knew his family was wealthy, but can I really rely on friends my entire life? I cut him off. What kind of young lady am I? Besides, asking servants to go out in this kind of weather. Are servants not people too? He was stumped. His bluster immediately deflated.
I can never win an argument with you.
He shot me another glance, stomped his foot, and said, a mix of anger and worry in his voice.
I had hot water prepared and ginger tea brewed. Go wash up quickly. I'll keep an eye on Uncle.
With that, he strode into the house, still radiating cold. Watching his tall, steady back, I suddenly remembered years ago, at school, when he first struck up a conversation with me.
Cousin, what is your name? Want some dried meat?
Back then, he was a pampered young master from the capital, dressed in fine silks, and smiled without a care in the world. Now, he stood in our humble house, sleeves rolled up, holding a bowl of medicine, patiently spoon-feeding father. His attendant, having prepared hot water, came to fetch him, but Wang Yun sent him away, muttering softly outside.
The young master won't even take a hot bath first.
Ever since he learned about this big typhoon, he pushed himself to cover a 3-day journey in just 2.
If he gets sick, the master will chew me out something fierce.
It was like I was seeing him in a new light. Wang Yun stayed in Lingnan for 5 years. His term of office ended time and again, and he rose from county magistrate to judicial commissioner for the prefecture. Every time he went back to the capital to report, he always found a way to stay. I asked him if he missed the capital. He scratched his head and said,
The lychees in Lingnan are just too sweet. I'm so content here. I've completely forgotten all about home.
He rarely spoke more than necessary. Over those 5 years, he'd come by every single day off, bringing delicious food for Auntie and me, and interesting little trinkets for me. He'd chat with Uncle about old times in the capital, playing chess and sipping tea. Sometimes, he'd even roll up his pant legs to help us fix the fence. On good weather days, he'd help Uncle and me air out our books. Every time Auntie kept him for dinner, he'd polish off 3 big bowls and clear every dish on the table.
Oh, Yun,
Auntie, a mix of contentment and sorrow on her face.
are you not eating enough when you're away?
He wiped his mouth and chuckled.
The Cantonese food outside is just too sweet. Nothing beats Auntie's cooking, though.
Auntie smiled, putting more food on his plate.
That is a good boy. Eat a little more.
Late that night, as I helped her get ready for bed, she suddenly took my hand. She stroked the calluses on my fingers, worn from years of writing, and sighed.
Ning, or if only I hadn't insisted on keeping you here back then and betrothed you to Wang Yun, would you have been spared all this hardship?
I leaned into her embrace. I have a father who dotes on me and a mother who loves me. Lingnan is bursting with flowers, and so many more fresh fruits and flowers than the capital. It is just the thing to satisfy my cravings. I don't feel any hardship. It is just, I just wonder how Cui Xun is doing these days. I remember, he always looked at me with such disdain. But back in school, when someone mocked me for being an orphan, he stood in front of me. He snorted coldly and said,
You're just a concubine's son. I bet you've never even had a proper birthday party your whole life. Zhou Ning, though, she is a proper young lady, officially from the Cui family. She had a grand birthday banquet when she was 6.
I remembered the day he got a beating. I knelt by his bed and asked him,
Brother, does it still hurt?
He just grunted, turning his head away from me, but his eyes were all red. He looked so incredibly hurt, like he was about to burst into tears. Then I recalled another day when our teacher let us out early. I suddenly got a craving for roasted sweet potatoes, so I bought some from a farmer. Then we went up the mountain, dug a hole, buried them, and started a fire to roast them. He was so impatient, telling me I was just wasting time, but he didn't dare leave me by myself and go ahead. He just grumbled.
You're such a country bumpkin. Even living in the manor, you'll never be a proper young lady. Eating this stuff will make you fart. It is not elegant at all.
As the sweet potatoes' aroma filled the air, I couldn't wait to put out the fire and started poking at it with a bamboo stick. But a spark flew up and burned my hand. He immediately jumped up, scolding me while pulling a bottle of wound medicine from his sleeve. It was the very same bottle I'd given him before. I had no idea he'd been carrying it all this time. He practically yanked my hand over and gently blew on it, then sprinkled the medicine on the burn.
I'm not doing this because I care about you. I just don't want to get scolded because of you.
After the medicine was on, I still dug the sweet potato out of the ashes, blew off the ash, and offered it to him. He frowned and took a bite. It was so hot he made a face, but he still ate the whole thing, every last bite. The sweet smell of the roasted potato seemed to still linger in the air. That young man, with his aloof face but stubborn eyes, where was he now? Even if Uncle didn't say it, I knew. He must be missing his son terribly. Would they ever have a chance to reunite in this lifetime? The turning point seemed to happen overnight. Even though 6 years had already passed, the news of course came from Wang Yun. He rushed over in the middle of the night, shouting even before he entered the courtyard.
Uncle, Auntie, incredible news. It is overturned. The imperial decree has been issued.
Auntie and uncle quickly dressed and got out of bed. They opened the door. I rubbed my aching wrists, tired from writing, and put down the story I was halfway through. We all just stood there, stunned for a long moment, until Auntie's sobs finally broke the silence. Only then did uncle let out a long, slow breath, as if a huge boulder that had been weighing on his chest for 6 years had finally rolled away.
Who was it? Who petitioned the court to re-examine the case?
Cui Xun, of course.
Shunner.
Uncle's voice became surprisingly calm. He murmured to himself.
I knew it.
Wang Yun, still buzzing with excitement, eagerly shared the inside scoop he gathered.
He'd taken the libationer of the Imperial Academy as his adoptive father. Then he joined the Hanlin Academy. 2 years later, he transferred to the Ministry of Personnel. He handled a few delicate matters with remarkable skill. The Emperor praised him highly and asked what he wished for. He immediately knelt down and kowtowed, begging His Majesty to revisit the old case. Apparently, he'd been digging through the case files for 3 whole years. The original letter that framed Uncle. He'd even found the original copy.
It wasn't surprising. Our return to the capital was scheduled very quickly. Before we left, I went to Wenhan Hall to say goodbye to the owner. He sat behind the counter, and from deep within, pulled out a renowned inkstick. It was a truly exquisite piece. Intricate, lifelike plum blossoms were carved into it.
This is an antique inkstick from Huizhou. I've treasured it for 20 years.
He pushed the inkstick towards me.
Take it. It is yours to use.
My throat felt tight. Years ago, he gave me a job, which allowed me to protect my parents. Uncle Zheng.
Oh, please, you shouldn't. If I'm giving you a gift, I expect something in return. I've opened a branch in the capital. From now on, when you write new stories, just send them straight there.
I bowed to him. That would be perfect.
Let's go. If we don't hurry, we'll miss the boat.
Wang Yun met me at the dock. As I boarded, he reached out his hand to help me up. I placed my hand in his. He paused for a moment, then pulled me onto the boat, and then naturally let go. As the boat pulled away from the shore, I stood at the stern, watching the mountains and rivers of Lingnan slowly fade into the distance. Dock workers bustled about, and the old vendor selling sweet soup called out loudly. When I first arrived 6 years ago, I thought this would be where I'd live out my days. 6 years passed, and I learned to copy books. I learned to create stories. I learned to fix roofs. I learned to put my past, stroke by stroke, onto paper, ready to embrace a new life. Wang Yun stood beside me. If you're sad to leave, I'll come back with you to visit sometime. The river wind ruffled his robes. I looked at him. He'd lost a lot of weight over the years, yet his face was much gentler than it had been when he was a boy. He was already 23, but still hadn't married. I suddenly called out to him, Wang Yun. Do you remember what you said to me the very first time we met? He thought for a moment.
I think it was. Cousin, what is your name? Want some jerky?
Not that.
Then what was it?
You said, if you don't want it, you can give it to me. Just don't try to take it from me later. His face immediately flushed red. He scratched his head.
I was just a kid back then. Didn't know what I was saying. That was just silly talk.
But I wasn't about to let him off the hook. I pressed, and now, he turned his head and looked at me, as if summoning all the courage he had. The river's surface shimmered. This moment would be nothing but a beautiful memory later on.
Now I still stand by those words. Only I'm not saying them to Cui Xun.
Who are you saying them to?
To you.
The boat drifted downstream, heading north. The warmth of his palm seemed to linger in my hand. That feeling stayed with me for 5 years and changed me. Back in the capital, it was April. The pomegranate flowers were in bloom. A good omen. The servant who met our boat said,
"We don't know when the master will arrive. The young master is busy with an urgent matter. He only told us to wait at the dock every day."
The old Cui family estate had been returned. After renovations, it looked even newer than before, but the layout was the same. In the small courtyard where I used to live, that pomegranate tree was still there, its blossoms of fiery red. Uncle stood at the doorway, gazing at the Cui residence plaque. He stood there for a long time.
Let's go in.
Aunt gently took his arm. He simply nodded and stepped over the high threshold. Wang Yun walked us to the door. He didn't go inside.
Uncle and Aunt, please get settled first. I'm going home for a bit. I'll swing by again in a few days.
Then he looked at me, his eyes full of reluctance.
I'll pick you up tomorrow. You're back in the capital. Su Yun and the others said they'd throw you a welcome party.
Pei Su Yun was already married. Her hair was styled in a married woman's bun, but her personality hadn't changed a bit. She grabbed my hand and cried when she saw me. Then she'd laugh, and after laughing, she'd scold me, calling me heartless for only writing a dozen letters in 6 years. After that, she'd hug me again, saying, "Well, it is all good now. Finally, I have someone who truly gets me." I asked her about her life. She said it was just okay. She married Lin, the Hanlin scholar. I knew him too. He is just a quiet type. We don't really click. Then she winked at me. "Look how happy Wang Yun is. He must have gotten what he wanted, right? That is wonderful. Childhood sweethearts. You must be 100 times happier than me. But that assistant minister Cui, It took me a moment to realize she was talking about Cui Xun, not my uncle. She pursed her lips and said, "He is quite the hotshot now. He is in high favor with His Majesty. So many families are lining up to marry into his. Ning. It is good, you've moved on. That is a good thing. His temper. He is definitely not a good match." A few days later, at dusk, I was sitting by the window, working on my manuscript. I was delayed on the journey, so I needed to finish the sequel to my novel quickly. I was completely absorbed when I suddenly felt a strange tug. I looked up and glanced out the window. Cui Xun was standing right under the pomegranate tree, dressed in plain blue clothes. He looked incredibly refined, with an air of uncommon grace. He was thinner than 6 years ago, a bit pale, his features sharper, and a streak of white even touched his temples. He just stood there, staring blankly, without a word. Pomegranate petals fell onto his shoulders, but he didn't seem to notice. After a few seconds of staring, I stood up and greeted him with a small smile. "You're back." He seemed to snap out of it and gave a soft hum in response. A hint of unease flickered in his eyes as he gazed at me. Finally, he spoke.
Your old maid got married. I couldn't get her back, so I found you someone with a similar personality. She is sure to suit you. After all, 6 years had passed.
He seemed to have mellowed out. He'd even learned to speak kindly to people. I couldn't help but laugh. "You've certainly gotten older. And your temper's mellowed out quite a bit. Not like you used to be, all frosty and distant." His brows furrowed, and his eyes instantly turned cold.
Is that really how you've always seen me?
Seeing his reaction, I knew I'd stepped on a landmine again. Not wanting to get into it, I quickly changed the subject and asked him, "Have you seen our parents yet? You must be relieved now, right?" His expression softened a bit. He nodded. Then he looked me over carefully and murmured,
You've had a tough time all these years.
I smiled. I've considered them my real parents for a long time now. His mood seemed to brighten instantly. A rare smile touched his lips.
So much has changed since I left the capital years ago. The city itself is practically unrecognizable. You just got back. I happen to have tomorrow off. I can take you two out to explore.
Wang Yun mentioned taking me for hot pot tomorrow anyway. I thought about it. It'd be perfect to go with Mom, Dad, and my brother. So I nodded my agreement. The next morning, the family set off together. My uncle wore a brand new robe. He seemed to have regained a lot of his vitality. My aunt was beaming. Back when we were exiled, she never dared to dream that we'd have a day like this, reunited and out together. She was incredibly moved. As we reached the street corner, we spotted Wang Yun waiting by the restaurant entrance. He was wearing neat clothes today. His hair was tidily combed. Seeing us, he smiled and came to greet us.
Uncle.
He respectfully bowed. Then he cupped his hands to Cui Xun.
Brother Cui, it is wonderful you could join us too. That is just fantastic.
Cui Xun frowned. He responded coolly.
We are family, traveling together. Of course we're together. It seems some outsiders decided to invite themselves.
These two never got along. It was probably Cui Xun being difficult. Now that I was practically Wang Yun's fiancé, and he was like a brother to me, I quickly stepped in to smooth things over. I'd already made plans with Wang Yun. My aunt also chimed in.
Zanji, did you reserve a table?
Wang Yun nodded in affirmation as he led the way. He naturally walked beside my aunt. Cui Xun's brows were furrowed, but he didn't make a scene in public. The private room wasn't large. There was a square table. My aunt sat at the head of the table. My uncle sat to her right. I was about to sit to my aunt's left when Cui Xun pulled out a chair first.
You sit there.
He glanced at Wang Yun. Wang Yun didn't contend for the seat. He sat next to my father. He asked about my father's leg ailment with concern, saying he'd brought some ointment from a famous shop. It was very effective. My father patted his hand, a smile on his face.
You're too kind.
Cui Xun sat down right next to me. He picked up the teapot and poured tea for the elders. He only poured for himself last. My cup remained empty. He didn't pay it any mind. I'd never liked drinking tea since I was little. I'd always said it made me lose sleep. Wang Yun reached for the pot. He poured me a cup. He smiled and said,
Brother Cui, try this. It is top-grade Lao Jun Mei from Wuyi Mountain.
Cui Xun took a sip and set it down.
Brother Wang, you've been out and about for years. You've even become a tea connoisseur.
Wang Yun gave a frank laugh.
Connoisseur is a bit much, and Ning likes it. I just helped her taste a few varieties.
His words hung in the air. The atmosphere stiffened for a moment. Just then, a server came in with the dishes. Wang Yun smiled at me and said,
I ordered hot pot. You used to love spicy food. Eating such bland food in the south. I bet you've been craving it.
Cui Xun set down his teacup. His gaze was unreadable.
Brother Wang and Ning, you two certainly seem close.
Wang Yun glanced at him. He smiled.
We grew up together, of course we're close. Naturally, we're close. Well, aren't you too, Cui?
The hot pot was brought to the table. The spicy broth was bubbling, and the clear broth frothed. Wang Yun first served the elders. Then he cooked a slice of beef with his chopsticks and placed it in my bowl.
You love spicy food. Have some more.
I hadn't even touched it yet. Cui Xun, sitting across from me, suddenly spoke up.
She can't handle spicy food. It always makes her feel unwell. She gets blisters on her lips.
Wang Yun smiled.
After 6 years down south, she can handle a little spice now. It is quite humid there, and eating spicy food actually feels better.
Cui Xun's eyes were fixed on me, as if trying to confirm if it was true. I could only nod. Yes. I slowly got used to it over time. He didn't say anything more. He just quietly drank his tea and sighed.
So many years have flown by. Ning is already 20. If only that incident hadn't happened, she'd probably be a mother by now.
Then she asked,
Wang Yun, you're 24 this year, aren't you?
Wang Yun looked at me.
Yes, 4 years older than Ning. We've known each other for 14 years.
He smiled again and said,
Back in school, everyone used to call Ning little cousin.
Cui Xun snorted.
What is that got to do with you? She is not even twin your cousin. The atmosphere grew tense again. Aunt, seeing this, smiled and tried to smooth things over. Come on, everyone eat up. Cool, you too, start eating. This place has pretty good food.
Cui Xun mumbled in response, but he still didn't eat much. Wang Yun, however, drank with Dad and told funny stories from Lingnan. He talked about a year a typhoon ripped off a roof, and he climbed up to fix it, but ended up falling into a mud pit. Dad burst out laughing. Aunt chuckled too. I couldn't help but crack a smile. Cui Xun sat silently opposite me, twirling the teacup in his hand. When I looked at him, he was staring at Wang Yun. His expression was unreadable, without a hint of emotion. Noticing my gaze, he turned his head and met my eyes. For a moment, he looked away. The sun was setting. Wang Yun walked us to the door to say goodbye. Then he pulled out a paper bag and handed it to me. Your favorite roasted chestnuts. I picked them up on my way. I took them. Our fingers brushed. It felt warm. He smiled and rode off on his horse, just as he had appeared before me out of nowhere all those years ago. I turned and went inside. Cui Xun was standing behind the spirit screen, leaning against the wall, arms crossed. He suddenly let out a small laugh.
Roasted chestnuts. You used to love roasted sweet potatoes. Is it that you prefer chestnuts now that you're older? A little milder, I guess.
Cui Xun looked at me, his lips parting, as if he wanted to say something, but in the end, he just nodded.
Go on in. You must be exhausted, just getting back to the capital. I have to leave on a long assignment for the emperor.
I'll have something to tell you when I get back. He paused, then added earnestly.
Wait for me.
He finished speaking, then turned and walked away. I let out a wry chuckle. What could he possibly have to say? That he has to wait until he gets back for? I mulled it over for a while, but couldn't make sense of it, so I just decided to drop it. I still had Old Man Zheng's manuscript to write, and in my spare time, I still needed to embroider my bridal gown. Wang Yun and I weren't getting any younger. Our parents had arranged it, and we'd skipped all the usual fuss and formalities. We were getting married soon. Cui Xun, however, hadn't gone back to his room. He walked around the Cui estate, passing the corner where Zhou Ning used to buy candy when she was little. He had no idea where he was going. He didn't really need to go on that assignment for the Ministry of Personnel. He just couldn't bear to stay at home. For the past 6 years, he'd been longing for this moment. Now his wish had finally come true, but it felt nothing like he'd imagined. What was different? He couldn't quite put his finger on it. He was afraid that in front of his family, he'd say something he couldn't take back. Just like that bowl of tea he de-shattered 14 years ago. That day, he'd burst through the door full of excitement, only to hear his stepmother tell that grubby little girl,
From now on, I'm your real mother.
When the teacup shattered, it wasn't just the cup that broke. His heart's door shattered right along with it. He knew his parents' marriage had been rocky. 6 months after his birth mother passed, his father remarried. When he'd been sick, his stepmother had taken great care of him.
Think of me as your real mother.
He'd believed her, but it turned out that phrase wasn't just for him. Anyone could be her child, it seemed. From that day on, he learned better to walk away first than be left behind, to show he didn't need anyone. With Zhou Ning, he'd been turning away for 14 years. That day, when Zhou Ning asked him at his bedside if it hurt, he wanted to say yes, it did, but he just turned his face away, afraid she'd see how vulnerable he was, afraid she'd look down on him. Later, when his stepmother tried to gauge his feelings, he suddenly felt a surge of defiance. He didn't want to play by her rules and marry the woman she wanted him to. Later, when they were exiled to the south, she followed them. Hope flickered in his heart, yet he cruelly tried to snuff it out. She shouldn't gamble her whole life on an unknown future. He hardened his heart and wrote, telling her to marry another.
Just marry early. Why put herself through all that hardship? I'm never going to marry you.
In truth, Those words cut him deeper than anyone. He worked himself to the bone. Only then could he numb the pain. Only then could the Cui family ever hope to rise again. He finally saw his efforts pay off. The emperor showered him with praise. When his majesty asked what he desired, he kowtowed deeply in the golden hall. All those years of hardship just for this day. He rushed home, filled with excitement, to see the one he'd thought of day and night. But something felt off. Something had changed. Then, a thought struck him. He grasped the idea. He'd learned over the years to fight for what he wanted. All his family's wrongs had been righted. What else couldn't he achieve? Just earn a few more merits. Then ask his majesty to grant a marriage. Then everything would be back in his hands. His steps grew lighter. Conveniently, the emperor had a thorny task that needed handling. He hadn't wanted to take it on before, but now it was the perfect opportunity. He had to go and return quickly. Once he returned, I'll tell her everything. On my wedding day, before dawn, the maids had already pulled me up to get ready. The reflection in the mirror was blurry. My eyes curved into a smile. It was me, but not really. The wedding procession left the Cui estate, full of music and fanfare, heading for the Wang family's home. I sat in the sedan chair, clutching the apple, listening to the lively sounds outside, a little nervous, but also at peace. Finally, I was marrying Wang Yun. The sedan stopped halfway. The procession fell into disarray for a moment. Then I heard the matchmaker's frantic cry.
Lord Cui, this is the bridal sedan. You can't just...
Then a hoarse voice spoke, muffled, as if he hadn't had a drink in ages.
Zhou Ning.
My heart leaped. The sedan curtain was torn open. A cold gust of wind rushed in, ripping off my bridal veil. Not far away, Cui Xun stood there in his official robes, his face streaked with dust, as if he'd been traveling for ages. Exhaustion etched into every line. Dark circles sagged under his eyes, and there was more gray at his temples. His eyes were bloodshot, his fists clenched tight.
You promised to be my wife. How can you go back on your word now? Break your promise like this.
The matchmaker stamped her foot in a panic.
Lord Cui, this is completely out of line.
He pushed the matchmaker aside and stepped closer, his eyes burning with emotion as he stared at me.
Zhou Ning, answer me.
I frowned. It is my wedding day. What is he doing? Brother Wang Yun and I are marrying with everyone's blessing, through proper channels. All the elders approved.
What about me then? What am I to you?
I sighed. My apologies, brother. I didn't consider your feelings. I should have picked a day when you were actually around, but the elders said this was the only auspicious day for 6 months. Since you're back now, well, isn't that just perfect? He let out a few cold laughs. Suddenly, he let go and took a step back.
I wish you happiness, as long as he is truly the one you truly love.
Wang Yun had also turned back from the front, but he hadn't interrupted. But his words were too much. I couldn't stand it anymore. My face went cold, and I blurted out, I don't like him. Am I supposed to like you instead? The sunlight was blinding. Veins pulsed on his forehead, his eyes icy. We stared at each other for a long moment. Finally, he softened. His voice dropped.
I know you hate me. All these years, I've been struggling. Half a year after my mother died, father married your mother. I thought she genuinely cared for me, but then of course, she expected you to call her mother too. I was furious, so I took it out on you, constantly. Whoever she wanted me to marry, I'd refuse. Ning, I actually realized how I felt about you a long time ago.
I cut him off. Brother, don't say another word. Leaving aside our complicated relationship, when our parents first suggested it, it was Sun Yu who wrote me a letter telling me to marry someone else.
I had no choice.
His voice was frantic.
You knew the situation the Cui family was in back then. My future was completely up in the air. How could I possibly drag you down?
His voice softened.
I've said a lot of wrong things before. This is the last time.
His eyes were red-rimmed, his face etched with hurt.
Do you know what I went through these past 6 years?
I paused. I could guess at the hardships he'd endured. Overturning an imperial decree and getting a retrial. That is no easy feat. Who knows how much effort went into that? I sighed. Brother. The past, for better or worse, it is all in the past now. My eyes must have been too cold. He took a step back, as if he'd just woken up.
Am I too late?
You're more than just a step too late. I remembered that typhoon day, 6 years ago, down south. Father fell gravely ill. I braved the storm to find a doctor. A tree branch crashed down. In that moment, I thought, if I died, would he regret never being kind to me? Then Wang Yun arrived, soaked from the storm. He protected my family for me. That is when I knew. The one I was meant to wait for. It was never you. The wedding attendant urged the sedan chair to move. I lowered the curtain. Let's go. Don't want to miss the auspicious hour. The music started up again, and we continued on our way. Cui Xun's stiff figure remained behind, looking lost and forlorn. Yet, he clutched that old medicine bottle tightly in his hand. Red candles flickered in the bridal chamber. Wang Yun was entertaining guests in the front hall. I sat in the room. My bridal veil had already been lifted. All the servants had withdrawn. I was alone in the room. Outside the window, the shadow of a pomegranate tree swayed. Fallen blossoms covered the ground. Maybe it is because I've written so many stories, living through other people's stories. I've seen too many partings and reunions. I empathize more easily than most. All that heartbreak Cui Xun talked about, I understand it all. But was he the only one who suffered? Just because he suffered, does that mean I have to forgive all the past hurts and rekindle an old flame? I, Zhou Ning, can't do that. Just like the year my mother died. Even though I was heartbroken, I still traveled alone for miles to find a new home. In a strange new mansion, I was obedient and humble, trying to win over his hostile heart. I also understand his fear, afraid of being abandoned after giving his heart, afraid that if he was good to me, I would also be like his stepmother and share my love with someone else. But what is there to be so afraid of in life? No matter how strong the storm, roll up your sleeves. Just wade through it, and you'll find your way. I won't wallow in my pain, reliving it over and over, and taking it out on everyone around me. I just want to be myself, treat others well, and make the best of my life. The door gently pushed open. Wang Yun stood there, his face glowing with happiness, his eyes bright and clear. My dear, tonight, he looked even more handsome than usual. My heart swelled with joy. I patted the edge of the bed. He strode in and pulled me into his arms. His heartbeat came through his clothes, clear and strong.
My dear, I feel like I'm dreaming right now. I actually got to marry you.
I tapped his forehead. Now, we're officially husband and wife. He nodded. He held me tighter. His voice grew hoarse.
We're officially married. Now it is time for the real business.
The red curtains fell. A lifetime of warmth. We'll have a long and warm life together.